Anyone ever find a dead body unintentionally? What's the story? Story 1. Worked at a movie theater. It was a weekday morning, so usually pretty slow for us. Went in to clean a showing of The Hateful Eight. There were only 2 people in the theater, one in the very back and one towards the front. Walk in to clean the theater, see the guy up front. Figure he was sleeping, happens sometimes. Say a couple things to see if he'll wake up. He does not. Get spooked and call my manager. Manager shook him a couple of times, realized something was wrong, called the police. Dude was dead. Story 2. Popular forest in my region, me and a few friends cut through it walking home after school. One of them scream, followed by another scream, followed by my frozen shock. Poor dude himself, the flies and the noises they made still itch my brain. Story 3. Leaving my house for quick errand, briefly noticed an elderly lady parked on side of the road. When I returned, her car was still in same location, and as I looked closer, she appeared unconscious, so I stopped, but her doors were locked, so dialed 911. It was determined she had passed away. This occurred when living on Lake Lanier in North Georgia. Story 4. A buddy of mine skipped school one day to go fishing. He thought his fishing line was caught on debride, but as he reeled and a human hand surfaced, he called the cops and they yelled at him for skipping school. Story 5. Yes. When I was 11, I woke up and was looking for my mom. Couldn't find her anywhere. Walked to her side of the bed and she was dead on the floor. That was in '92. She was 27. I'm 43 now. My hardest birthday was 28. I felt so young still and my life was just picking up, and just imagine all the stuff she missed. Story 6. I was at a family reunion forever ago. On my 13th birthday, Papa and I wake up early to go fishing on the big lake right next to the campsite. We get in my uncle's bass boat and start making our way out to find a spot. Eventually come across a jet ski, with the front end and handlebars all f***ed up, floating amongst some rocks. I will never forget it. We both immediately looked at each other, and we knew what we were going to find. We didn't say a word, just took the boat over to the rocks, and sure enough, there's a guy face down in the water in the rocks, obviously dead. We called the cops and waited so they could find him easier. They showed up maybe 20 minutes later and pulled him out. Whole front of his head was just Apparently he was drunk and riding his jet ski fast as hell the night before and smashed into the rocks head on. Poor dude. Think he was in his 40s if I remember right. We fished all morning and didn't say a thing. Didn't catch either. Mau. Story 7. There's a creek in my city. Suitcases were thrown back there. Someone opened one. It was arms. They had been sawn off. There were more suitcases, more body parts. A whole person had been dismembered with a meat saw and stuffed in suitcases and then thrown back there. Someone in the apartments nearby overdosed on her boyfriend panicked when she overdosed. He used to be a butcher, so he chopped her up and disposed of her. He got caught because the store near the apartment had excellent cameras, and the owner reported a strange purchase right before the news dropped of the body being found. Old boy bought 8 gallons of bleach, and that's ultimately how he got caught. Story 8. Playing in the woods hide and seek. I was running after my cousin and tripped and ate over what I thought was a rock. Turned over to get my shoe unstuck and saw it was something white, and I pulled my shoe out. I got up and saw it was actually a pelvis. I didn't know what the bone was named at the time, but I knew what a bone was. And I screamed, and my older cousins came running out from their spots to see me crying and trying to get away from the skeleton sitting in the dirt, and we went and told my parents. We were pretty deep in the woods, so one of us stayed nearby it and another one of us waited 50 feet away, but to where we could still see each other, and basically made a trail of human breadcrumbs to make sure we got back to the body to show the cops. Story 9. I drove past an elderly lady sat on her walker at the side of the road. Half an hour later, dragging back again, she was still there in the middle of winter. Pulled over and went to check on her just as she took her last breath. Someone else stopped and we did her until paramedics arrived, so I guess technically she wasn't a dead body until they pronounced her in the back of the ambulance. Story 10. Walked out back one morning to let my dogs out. It was early, so it was pretty cold out. I look over and I see my neighbor sitting in a lawn chair in his yard. I get closer thinking he might have fallen asleep or something the night before, and it was just too cold to be chilling there. As I got close, I see he is moving, and then I see a puddle of blood next to him. Then I see the shotgun. He shot himself in the chest. He was an older guy, former cop, who lost his wife like a year prior. He may have gotten some bad medical news himself shortly before he did it too. It was surreal though. Friends, before we continue our video, I want to remind you of the importance of subscribing to our channel. We are also waiting for your comments and likes. Thank you. Let's move on to the video. Story 11. When I was 14, my father had a heart attack at home. The paramedics could not help anymore. He died that Thursday at about 6 or 7 p.m. When the paramedics had left, I entered my parents' bedroom. I guess I wanted to get some stuff from there. I saw my father's corpse lying on his bed covered with a blanket. That day I lost my dad, saw him dead. Found out that PMs leave the corpse where it died, and I learned what dead silence means and feels like. Story 12. My youngest sister would babysit for the woman at the end of our block. She was a divorced woman with 2 kids. The ex-husband hadn't heard from her for a few days and came by her house to no answer. Came to my house to see if maybe the kids were there with my sister and if she had an answer why he hadn't heard from his ex-wife. Sister wasn't home, but he and I went to the house, knocked a few times, and then he just went to open the front door. It was unlocked and her body was in the living room. She was dead, and her children were kidnapped by her then boyfriend. The ex-husband was rightfully shocked and terrified, immediately called the police and reported as much info as he knew. My little sister had to answer some questions about the boyfriend, help give a description, vehicle type, just basic stuff. I think they caught the boyfriend in San Antonio if I remember. Couldn't find the article about it online. Story 13. I didn't, but a coworker did. He was inspecting a county ditch through the woods, and there was a body on it. Called the sheriff and left work for the day. Story 14. I was with my then girlfriend, later wife, who shared a penthouse in Boston with her brother. We went out into the deck one Sunday morning and saw a sweater draped over the railing. 23 floors below was a guy who jumped. He hit the ground so hard that his shoes exploded from the force. Police came and interviewed us, and we went in with our day. Very sad. Story 15. This was my housemate back in November. We'll call him Charlie, 31M. It was 2 days before his 32nd birthday. It was a very traumatic day. We lived within a house with a mother and son who had a huge family wedding that weekend, so they were away with family functions. We also lived with a very old blind dog who caused daily inside bathroom accidents. Around 10:00 a.m. that morning, a little after I woke up, I was cleaning up after the dog in the back room. I looked out to see Charlie in a patio chair with a blanket. I noticed he was sitting with his head low to one of the armrests. For some reason, I think my instinct knew he was dead before my reasoning could compute it. I know this sounds irresponsible. I told myself he was just sleeping because I was just talking to him around 1 a.m. about what he wanted to do for his birthday. I also had never seen a dead body before. I told myself I would check up on him in 30 minutes, 1 hour, because I didn't want to wake him up. He worked 2 jobs and 80 hours a week at least, so thought he could use the sleep. About an hour later, I was going out to get some breakfast. I went out to wake up Charlie so he could keep an eye on the dog. I yelled his name a few times, and he wasn't responding. As I walked closer, I noticed his eyes were open. I put my hand on his shoulder to try shaking him, but again, I received no response. I put my hand on his neck for a pulse, and I did not need to be a medical professional to know he'd been gone for hours and hours. Charlie probably passed in the early morning. He was almost as cold as the air. It was singularly the most horrific thing I've ever seen with my own eyes. I remember running inside and staring at him without blinking through the back door in terror and nausea for 2 to 3 minutes. I called 911, and within 90 seconds, emergency responders were in my backyard. A friend from the neighborhood came over to help me wrangle what seemed like 18 police officers, firefighters, EMCs, and medical examiners. The autopsy came back with a cause of 100%. I knew he was an addict, but had no idea he was using. I believe I am also the last person to see him alive and speak to him face to face. It was hard to eat for about a good 2 to 3 weeks after that. This is a good note to end on. Please write your stories in the comments. I'll be happy to add them to future videos. Also, you can rate our other videos. We would be very grateful. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.